Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the FIRE economies, as they're called: finance, insurance, and real estate. Now, as the West, 25 plus years ago, began to move their manufacturing offshore to places like China and India and so on. The proportion of the total economy that became part of the wider service industry, of which finance and insurance and so on is, then it changed the structure of the economy, the sort of jobs that were available and so on. But they also did something, I think, hugely significant, which we still haven't come and had an international reckoning with. The highly efficient, productive manufacturing of the West was that manufacturing was shipped offshore to China and so on, where it was far, far, far less efficient. It took 100 people to produce a widget as opposed to one person producing a widget in the West. I'm using that to illustrate the point that the productivity aspect of manufacturing went through the floor. It nosedived and crashed, it was depending on how you look at it, somewhere between a fifth and a sixth as productive as the West. But given the wage difference and working conditions difference between, say, China and America, the wage arbitrage, that's the difference between what you would pay someone in the US, what you pay someone in China, that arbitrage, plus all sorts of tax minimization scams, that made it more productive, as in economically productive, to manufacture in China, even though it was less productive in output terms. Anyway, this is what result. As this continued, this drift of manufacturing away from the West, Australia included, by the way, then the finance, insurance, real estate became a bigger and bigger proportion of the economy, and particularly with real estate and the stock market artificially being propped up. The stock market is overvalued is overvalued as fuck all across the Western world. This idea of a celebration when the stock market goes up even more. To me, it's quite the opposite, because the gap between real intrinsic value of the shares and the artificial value that we see that's totally controlled by the BlackRocks and the State Streets and so on, that those valuations don't even have no way a representation of economic and financial reality. It's the same as with real estate. Houses that you could buy for $200,000 in 1999, and now $2.5 million plus today in Sydney, without any improvements or additions or extensions or remodeling. That's just the way things have gone in pricing, which again an indication of how overvalued they are. But I wanted to particularly talk about this finance, insurance, and real estate, and the scams and the cronyism and so on that it creates. So I'll use some examples here. This is for example. Okay, so the insurance company says, we're not going to insure your house unless you clear away all the trees to a minimum of 50 feet away from the boundary line of your house. Let's say that. So you're looking to go, well, holy crap, I've got trees, and really nice trees. I don't want to really cut them down, but that's what they say. It's because of forest fires, but there's no forest fires in that area. But anyway, the insurance company says, we're not going to insure your house for any reason. Doesn't matter whether it's for, there's a flood or this or that. They've said that's you've got to cut all those trees down. Now, you can't cut those trees down because the local council or the local state government says that those particular trees you just can't cut them down. You can't get anyone to cut them down. You've got to get a special permit, and you have to go to a court to do that. Now, you have to get special inspectors to come out, but the insurance company says that you can only use inspectors that they recognise. If you try to use any other inspector, this is to inspect the trees and what can be cut down and what can't, any other inspector, they won't recognise it. So still you can't get insurance. They say you have to use from our list. Now those inspectors aren't cheap. How did the insurance company select them? How were they appointed? What was the thing? Now you've got to pay them sort of 3 times what the market rate is. So if you could get someone to do the inspection of the trees for $100, you got to pay these dudes $300. Are there kickbacks involved here? Is it friends of the insurance company? I mean, who knows who here? Is there's some little scam going on in the back? Is there now? They've all seemed to be certified from one particular college that's been set up, but if you do a little bit of digging, it's actually owned by the wife of the CEO of the insurance company. This is all looking very suspicious now, and these people have to pay a fee to get certified, but they get guaranteed work and high fee paying work, but only if they get a certificate from that college, which then allows them to be registered to this insurance company that insists that if you want insurance, you have to use these people. So anyway, that now then the insurance company says, well, you have to go to court now, so that you've got this inspection, you've got to go to the land and environment court or whatever the equivalent is in whatever jurisdiction to get permission to cut these trees down. But they said, well, you have to use these lawyers who are experienced. If you don't use these lawyers, we won't recognise the court verdict that you get. Okay. So again, you look at that. Those people are then effectively employees of the insurance company, and they insist that you have. Now they've got this pretense that they're actually free agents that are operating in the market. No, they're not. They're flunkies effectively working for the insurance company. So that's to get more money that gets taken up. Then you go through all that, which is expensive. Then you get to cut down the trees, but you can only use a tree cutting service that the insurance company says you have to use. So again, they've got you, but they won't insure your house unless you go through these steps that they say, using the people that they say. Then you get the tree cut down, and they say, no, we still won't insure you until one of our inspectors has gone out to inspect to make sure that the trees have been cut down, and so on. So then you have to pay, and then again, it's only the inspectors that they say you can use. So on it goes, and so it's a scam of the first order. I would argue. Now this is how the insurance aspect and finance aspect. The finance is controlled by some big players that can just artificially inflate or deflate prices as they see fit, whenever they see fit. The insurance industry is one where they can just declare, we won't cover that insurance. For example, they can say to a big building site, a construction site, we're not going to insure anything on there until you've done this, this, and this, and they can just assert it, but you can only use people that we say you have to use, the people that we say you have to use, and you have to use these organisations, and so on. So the latitude for corruption and cronyism is off the charts, and I would argue is rampant in those industries where now the insurance industry, since the manufacturing has been sent offshore, and since it became acquired a gravitational pull of its own because of the scams and so on that go on, the insurance industry has become hugely profitable, far more than it ever was hitherto. Now, why is that? Why has it suddenly become so very profitable? Now, it doesn't. That doesn't mean that they don't have to make payouts on flood damage or this or that. But if you looking at the requirements that they impose upon you. Now, there are other scams that go on. For example, a guy going through divorce, and the judge says, "Oh, well, you have to get a special psychologist or psychiatrist or somebody to evaluate the family." But you can only use someone off their list. And and they're paid handsomely for doing that. So they can be charging, you know, $400-500 an hour to do it, plus traveling time, and it's an insane amount of money that you have to pay, and they've ordered it. And if you don't do it, and the cost is invariably handed over to the man who has to pay for it. And if you don't do it, then, well, Mr. Smith, you're not going to see your children again unless you agree to this, and those sorts of things. Now that's you know, another type of scam. You can only use their recommended people. It just so happens that they're all fanatical leftist, gender studies, angry lesbian people that do it. So you're looking at, again, this idea of cronyism, and the you can't get certain jobs if you have a certain certification, yet the people doing the employing also own the certification college or have very close ties to it. So this fire insurance and real estate is not only scams on steroids, you know, labor hire firms, you name it, but also cronyism, and also a very serious element in decreasing economic productivity. You know, the cronyism and the you must do this or else. We won't insure you or else, or you're not allowed to see your children or else, or you can't get a job here or else. This is all closed shop cronyism, and is resulting in a precipitous decline in economic productivity all across the West for those reasons. So a FIRE economy is something that again makes a small handful of people very rich, but everyone else suffers, and the economy at large suffers due to, again, declining productivity. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.